name is Cheryl Erickson, and I'm the Indigenous focused ECE instructor with Louis Riel Vocational College. Today in Understanding Children Through Observation, we're going to look at Chapter 8 and observations that give cause for concern. But before we get started, just a reminder to read Chapter 8, as this video is not a replacement for your chapter readings. So observations that give cause for concern are observations where there are signs or symptoms, even indicators that something isn't right. And that could be a child might not be meeting developmental milestones. It could mean that there are challenging behaviors or behavioral problems that would actually probably affect a child in their progression of development or affect a child possibly socially. Those types of behaviors you're going to want to observe, because you're going to want to develop a plan of action to correct those behaviors. It could be behaviors that cause you concern, like you think there could be some health-related issues. As well as there are times where you could be concerned that a child is being abused or neglected. And so again, we do have tools that we use for observation. When it comes to potential abuse or neglect, we are mandated, it is the law, that you do report anything that you feel is a threat to a child. If you feel they're in an unsafe situation or they are being abused or neglected, you do need to report that to Child and Family Services All Nations. But there is a process of documentation as well. So you would need to take the time to sit down and document objectively what it is you see or what a child is saying. So there are different tools that you're going to use. And of course, again, when we look at these tools, we look at how you're setting them up, how you're dating them, the times, and what it is that you're seeing. So if it's a health concern and a child is for example, maybe you suspect that a child has asthma, and so that after outdoor play they're coughing a lot, and you notice that sometimes they struggle to catch their breath. That's something that you're going to observe, document, and you're going to have some conversations with the parents as well. But you want to make sure that that information is documented and it's put in that child's file as well. So just to add to this video for this chapter, there is another video that goes into more detail regarding observing children when there is cause for concern. So please do take the time to watch that video. In conclusion, please do see your instructor if you have any questions regarding this chapter, as well as check in, because we are doing some in-class work on observing and creating some documents that we can use to help us looking at these different types of concerns and how we are going to document accordingly.
Assessment definitions refers to the collection of information for the purpose of making educational decisions about children or a program. Methods should be developmentally appropriate, should be aligned with desired outcomes or goals for children. State standards are often guiding assessment. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Assessment definitions. Child outcomes. What happens as a result of services provided to children, measured by the attainment of different child development milestones or skills. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Purposes of assessment. Provides information to stakeholders about expectations. Helps teachers in planning instruction. Helps administrators in improving programs. Identifies children who may require special interventions. Provides information for program accountability. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Reasons for observing children. To gain knowledge of age-appropriate behaviors. To gain knowledge of individual differences. To become aware of the total environment and influences on children. To identify specific strengths and difficult areas for individual children. To gather data to plan for individual children. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Reasons for observing children, continued. To gain understanding of children's stages of physical, intellectual, emotional, social, and language development. To gain an appreciation of children's abilities, interests, perceptions, and personalities. To gain knowledge of how children learn. To identify how individual children react/relate to a group situation. To become aware of positive, pro-social, and negative, antisocial, behaviors of children. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Authentic assessment. Ongoing process to determine a child's strengths and needs, which supports teacher planning by using the information and insights gained to evaluate teaching techniques and curriculum. Assessment data is gathered through observations, interviews, collections of children's work and anecdotal records as children are actively involved in hands-on problem solving and investigation. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Authentic assessment. Careful assessment is especially important when planning for ethnically, culturally, and linguistically diverse young children and for children with special needs or disabilities. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Reflect on this. Which is the best way to get valid information on children and their learning? Standardized tests. Authentic assessment. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Guidelines for recording the behavior of young children. All information is confidential. Observe quietly with little or no interaction. Record objective observations in a clear, precise, and useful manner. Think of the child and respect her as she is, not as you think she should be. Be as familiar as possible with the age group before beginning to observe. Use the speaker's exact words when recording conversation. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Meaningful assessment. Strategies. Collecting data by observing children in a natural setting. Using criteria that can assess children from birth to age 8 all ability levels. Categorizing observation results by curriculum content areas and developmental domains. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Meaningful assessment. Measures. Observational data on children's work in the areas of language and literacy, early math, social development, self-help, nature, science, and so on. Data is collected at the beginning of the year to document skills the children have at entry. Teachers update the information as the year progresses and then enter data at the end of the year. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Guidelines for interpreting behavior of a young child. Identify consistent patterns of behavior for a particular child over a specific period of time. Document patterns of behavior with specific examples of such behavior. Identify areas of difficulty and developmental delays as well as age-appropriate and accelerated development. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Guidelines for interpreting behavior of a young child. Remember not to make assumptions about the child's family life as the cause of her behavior at school/center. Remember not to make assumptions about the child's behavior away from the school/center. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Data collection tools. Anecdotal record checklist. Reflective log or diary. Case study. Portfolio assessment. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Anecdotal record. Brief, informal narrative account describing an incident of a child's behavior that is important to the observer. May apply to a specific child or to a group of children. One of the developmentally appropriate ways teachers can evaluate a child's learning. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Anecdotal Record. Anecdotes describe the beginning and ending times of the observation, an objective and a factual account of what occurred, telling how it happened, when and where it happened, and what was said and done. Anecdotal records come only from direct observation and are written down promptly and accurately. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Checklist. A record of direct observation that involves selecting from a previously prepared list the statement that best describes the behavior observed, the conditions present, growth and development, or the equipment, supplies, and materials available. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Checklist. Checklists can be used to reflect common activities and expectations in classrooms structured around developmentally appropriate activities and based on national, state, and local standards. Easy to use and helpful in planning for individual or group needs. Eliminate the need to record all details of behavior. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Reflective log or diary. A teacher or administrator's record of the most significant happenings, usually made at the end of the day or during an uninterrupted block of time. Includes what stood out as important facts to remember for the day, written in as much detail as possible, and extends over a long period of time. The diary description is an informal method of observation and is considered the oldest method in child development. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Case study. A way of collecting and organizing all of the information gathered from various sources, including observations of and interviews with the child, to provide insights into the behavior of the individual child studied. Interpretations and recommendations are included. Main purposes are to discover causes and effects of behavior, child development research, and to plan for the individual child. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Portfolio assessment. A systematic collection of information about a child's ongoing development and the child's work gathered by both the child and teacher over time from all available sources. Portfolios come in many shapes and sizes, such as expanding, accordion-type files, file folders, cardboard boxes, scrapbooks, 3-ring binders, or unused pizza boxes. Teachers' comments on each portfolio sample help document what the child knows, can do, and how she does it. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Portfolio is a collection of child-produced material. Creative drawings and paintings. Dictated stories. Lists of books and stories read. Product samples showing strengths and skills. Samples of a child's self-initiated work. Photographs, audio and videotapes. Teacher objectives for the child. Anecdotal records, developmental checklists. Family interviews and comments. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved. Keeping up with assessment. Collecting data. Spend at least 10 minutes 3 times a week collecting different kinds of data that capture children's level of engagement and understandings, including casual conversations, written observations, photographs, videotapes, audio tapes, and samples of their other work. Copyright 2015 Cengage Learning. All rights reserved.